The Business Buzz, an insightful and fresh take on a variety of issues that impact the local business environment. This is where we address the business topics that matter. Here's your host, Sabrina Turner.
Good morning, Cayman, and it's time for another Business Buzz right here on Radio Cayman. I am your host, Sabrina Turner, and today we have a shortened show, one segment only. But you know what? We talk about and have a chat with Dr. Joe Davis of Cayman Fertility Center. The Business Buzz is proudly sponsored by Cayman Medical Supplies. Give them a call, 949-6211, and also by Cayman Insurance Center, celebrating 45 years in the Cayman Islands, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Joe Davis to our show.
Thank you, Sabrina. I'm happy to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you. For those of listening and viewing via streaming on YouTube, tell us a little bit about Cayman Fertility Center and how the idea came about to open here in Cayman.
Yeah. Well, this is a perfect location for bringing high-quality fertility care to the island. Me personally, I've always in my career been an advocate for access to care. And in my practice in New York City, one of the big, sort of other things that I would do would be find ways that more patients could get access. Mm-hmm. A lot of the barriers to care in the United States were about cost or insurance coverage or even just access to doctors. Certain parts of the country didn't have that. And when I looked outside of the U.S., I had worked with the World Health Organization for a while on this. We said, there's parts of the world that just don't have facilities. They don't have doctors. They don't have specialists. Northern Caribbean is a particularly an area of particular interest because they really don't have access to good quality services. I then, in my career, had met with the Barbados Fertility Center group, Dr. Juliet Skinner and Anna Hosford, who had done this in the Caribbean and then Southern Caribbean. Mm-hmm. They had a broad reach where they brought high-quality IVF, high-quality IVF to Southern Caribbean, and most of their patients now are from all over the world. They represent 50 countries. And so over the years of discussing with them, how can we expand this? How can we bring this high-quality treatment to somewhere else? We said, Cayman is a perfect location. It's a lovely, wonderful island with a passion for quality health care, a great place to visit for people off island. But really a lot of the patients from Cayman before we were here were obligated to go off island, go to the United States. And, again, they're facing those same cost barriers and challenges that people that I was seeing throughout my other practice.
Well, it's good to know that you chose Cayman.
Well, thank you.
We have a lot. I know we're an easy sell.
Yeah, definitely. It's a wonderful, lovely place, and I've been so happy to be here, and the people have been just so welcoming.
That's good. And here you are on the Business Buzz.
Exactly.
Now, even though the center has been open for just a little bit and assisting patients for a while, I believe yesterday was the official opening.
Yes.
Congratulations on that. And how did that go?
It went amazingly well. We were really excited to do an official opening, to really invite all of the people that had really made it happen, as well as anyone who wanted to see and tour the center, and much bigger response than we even expected. Mm-hmm. We had some honorable guests there. Honorable Dwayne Seymour was there, the Minister of Health. We had the medical director and several other people from the government agencies that made all this possible, as well as our team that built the actual center and our team that practices there.
Now tell us where the center is located.
So we're out in East End. We're actually, the closest landmark would be Health City Hospital. We're not in the hospital proper, but there's a new building across the parking lot. Uh-huh. So to find us, easiest way is to head towards Health City. And there's a building right in front that we're on the second floor. We've got a large space there, and it's a beautiful space, and I would encourage anyone who wants to see it to come out.
Excellent. Now tell us about the team at Cayman Fertility Center.
So within any fertility practice, you're going to have a team of people that have all of the different crucial roles. Myself, I'm the physician there. I'm the only doctor in the practice. I'm the medical director as well as the
man of many hats.
Yes, exactly. I have one nurse who's our nurse manager, Dawn Davidson, who's phenomenal. She comes with 25 years of experience, also from the U.S. She's from Philadelphia and worked at University of Pennsylvania, which is a major institution there for IVF. And we have our embryologist and lab director, Katerina. And Katerina actually is also the laboratory director at Barbados Fertility.
Okay.
Because we're sister practices and we have this wonderful partnership, we thought the best way when you're starting an IVF center and you want to make sure that it's going to give you the best quality outcomes.
Bring those persons in.
Bring them in,
set.
exactly. Exactly. And she built the lab to her specifications. It's like her dream lab, which gives us the best outcomes.
Now, what has been the most satisfying thing about being a fertility doctor and assisting patients?
You know, being a fertility doctor is such a unique, amazing part of the medical field because you're really working with people who are struggling to build a family, and that can be really difficult for so many people. But when you get that achievement, when you get that success, and you can see the progression from that initial consultation all the way up to the baby that's born, it makes it all worth it. And so being part of that process is what keeps me excited.
So let's talk about the main services that are being offered here at Cayman Fertility Center.
Well, the easy answer to that is everything. We treat all aspects of fertility, all the way from just discussion about general fertility, natural fertility, all the way up through in vitro fertilization, donor eggs, donor sperm, pretty much anything. And that's really what we wanted to bring here. We didn't want to have a piecemeal, partial service. Prior to us coming here, one of the, sort of elements of this island, which is so great, is that there's a lot of really wonderful women's healthcare here. There's some great OBGYNs on island.
Yes.
I've had the honor of meeting most of them, and they were able to provide fertility services up to a certain point. But in vitro fertilization and advanced reproductive technologies really require the laboratory environment. So if patients did intrauterine inseminations or medications to try to get pregnant and that didn't work, what they're really relegated to is going abroad.
Yes.
And, the costs of care in the U.S. are
Plus
about
the visits, the checks, the risk in even traveling at the early stages.
Absolutely. And just the all the headache and the
Exactly.
struggle. So, yeah.
Now, what is the acronym PGT?
Sure.
We're not talking about Windows here either.
No, not at all. Not at all. So PGT stands for pre-implantation genetic testing.
Okay.
And this has really revolutionized fertility care. One of the main challenges when you do in vitro fertilization is identifying the best quality embryos, because when a sperm and an egg come together, they create an embryo. And that embryo divides over a certain number of days, and they all kind of look very similar. So you grade them based off appearance. Well, that only gets you so far. And we know that after a certain age, well, really at any age, a certain percentage of embryos are going to be genetically abnormal, which means they're not likely to work. You're not going to get pregnant. So when we develop the technology to do genetic testing of those embryos, without damaging the embryos, we can sample a few minor cells and take a genetic analysis of those cells, and what we can determine is which embryos are more likely to implant. Exactly. And what it's really changed for us is pregnancy rates in, especially, say, women at 40, even with IVF, we're in the 10-20% range. With genetic testing, when we find that genetically competent embryo, we've got 70% pregnancy rates per embryo, and it suddenly takes age out of the equation.
Now, you're the professional here, but you always heard it's best to have your child earlier, like before the 30s or mid-30s. But when you're tapping into 40 and above, it's like, oh, that's a no-no. But I'm noticing now, it's almost like an in thing. You're hearing people 45, early 50s sometimes, getting pregnant. Is that even healthy? Was the body designed for that without all of this? Shouldn't I say genetically modified?
That's a great question. No, the body is, and this is what's really interesting and unique about reproduction. And as we learn more about it through the development of reproductive technologies, is the egg quality and the ability to create a genetically healthy embryo is the main barrier for most people, especially when they approach 40 and above. So being able to identify an embryo that's healthy and that can implant is the
key.
Number one key. Yeah. The uterus itself is able to carry a pregnancy even well beyond the reproductive years. We do, from an ethical standpoint, say, we don't really encourage people to carry a pregnancy beyond age 50 because of other health concerns, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. So, but if someone is in good health, even in their mid-40s, and we can find a healthy embryo, then they really have the same outcomes as other people.
Okay, interesting. I don't know if we should take a break. No, we got time. I want to go into male infertility. Yes, I'm going to choose those first because many times the ladies will say, it's not that I don't want to have a child or children. I just can't have it. And nothing wrong with me. It's got to be him, but he's not going to go to get himself checked.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about male infertility and how one will even find out whether or not they have an issue.
Absolutely. And I would say to those ladies, you're absolutely onto something because approximately 40% of when couples are trying to get pregnant and they're unsuccessful, approximately 40% of the time it's due to the male solely. The number one reason I think that
I'm going to make you repeat that. 40%.
40% of guys in couples that have been trying for a year that aren't pregnant, it's due to the guy solely. And, part of it is that there aren't any symptoms of male fertility generally. So if you're trying for a baby and it's not working, we know that the things that are more likely to be the cause are not something that would have shown up early. If guys were having pain associated with fertility, they probably would have gotten checked out sooner.
Yes.
So that's a part of why it's so highly represented. But the best way to really assess that for a guy is what's called a semen analysis. And what it is the gentleman produces a sperm specimen for us. We analyze it under the microscope, and we look to see, are there sperm there? Are they moving? Are they appropriately shaped? All of these are aspects that will be important for fertilization naturally, as well as with any fertility treatment.
Okay. Now, once a patient decides to move forward with just reaching out and trying to get help to confirm whether or not there are any fertility issues, especially the male, what are the next steps?
Sure. So, the initial...
With the samples,
Yeah, absolutely. So with us, when patients reach out to us, we have several different ways that they can reach us. We have our Facebook page, our website that all have contact methods through them. They send us generally just an outreach to say, hey, this is what I've been struggling with. We take a thorough history. We have a form that they fill out with all of what they've tried, what they've done, what their medical problems are. And that's really the starting point is what is it in the past that may be impacting your fertility today? And there's so much to be learned from that. I then take that information, sit down with the patient, either both or one of them at a time, in person in our office. If it's a patient from abroad, we do it over either telephone consult or whatnot, and really go through, okay, here's where we're coming from. My approach really is to say, here's what's supposed to be happening naturally. Let's explore what bits and pieces may not be working so that we can uncover it. And that involves us analyzing the male sperm with the semen analysis. For women, the number one finding that we see when a couple's been trying that's a barrier is blocked fallopian tubes or uterine problems, such as fibroids, polyps.
Right.
So some sort of imaging of the uterus, either an X-ray called a HSG or a hycosi, which is an specialized ultrasound we do in the office, really tells us a lot about the uterus and the tubes and sort of any structural problems. And then the other sort of arm of it, of course, is the eggs. And there are some things in someone's history that might suggest that there's a problem releasing an egg, such as if a woman gets a period every 3 or 4 months, that's not usual.
Normal.
Right. And that suggests that there's a problem ovulating or releasing an egg, which means we need to focus directly on that, not to ignore the other aspects. We still look at all different components because it's one thing to treat an obvious sign, but to overlook something else would be just, kind of limited.
What would you say to some of those men out there that says, I ain't got an issue, I'm drinking my peanut punch and I'm doing my own blend up stuff? Caribbean men have to have this thing, I blend up my nuts and my okra and my banana and all that good stuff.
I'd say that that's awesome that they're doing it because I think that's an important start. But I said, let's just check. I always think of it this way: is the semen analysis to me is almost like a blood pressure. You go to the doctor, you get your blood pressure checked. If it's normal, great. You're happy for a year. Don't bother. You're not going to have any major medical problems. Same with the semen analysis. Why not check it? If it's normal, great. You just proven your point that your peanuts are working. If it's not good, then okay, now we can explore it. The other thing I always emphasize to people is if we find a problem, it doesn't mean automatically you have to jump into some crazy treatment.
Right.
There are a lot of things that we can uncover and say, okay, now that we know this, let's try this diet modification. Let's try this supplement. Let's try something and, really kind of help improve natural fertility. It's not an automatic jump to advanced treatments.
Okay. You're in tune to Radio Cayman's Business Buzz as we put the spotlight and hear more about Cayman Fertility Center with Medical Director Dr. Joseph Davis. The Business Buzz is proudly sponsored by Cayman Medical Supplies and also Cayman Insurance Center. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about females being able to identify whether or not they have any issues, that telltale signs that as a female, we go to the doctors a little bit more than the male. So we may be onto something quicker than the men would pick it up. You no longer have to walk and take that blame that it's your fault. Keep it locked to the Business Buzz for more when we come back. Oh gosh.
Don't let the stress of taking care of loved ones get you down.
Home care, now made easier with K-Man Medical Supplies. 100% Caymanian owned. K-Man Medical Supplies now stocks a wide range of home care supplies. Hospital beds, all types of wheelchairs, including beach access wheelchairs, lifts, commodes, shower chairs, walkers, Curad brand orthopedic supplies. Free blood glucose monitors with the purchase of 1 pack of test strips, blue underpads, and a whole lot more.
Need home care convenience? Drop by K-Man Medical Supplies at 93 Smith Road, Windward Center, or call 949-6211. Free delivery.
I'm Michael Webster.
And I'm Denise Brown of Cayman Insurance Center.
Family is not the most important thing, it's everything.
And for 45 years, we have worked with the community and their families on protecting themselves for the future.
Whether it's providing top-rated life insurance
or protecting your family's household investment.
From our family to yours, we understand and we care.
I'm Denise Brown. Call me at 814-7229.
And I'm Michael Webster at 925-5433.
We are Cayman Insurance Center,
specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services at an affordable rate. We are Michael and
Denise at Cayman Insurance Center.
Call today.
Support our port, support our tourism. Across the Caribbean, our competitors have built piers that give cruise ship passengers a better arrival and departure experience. How can we expect to compete if we don't meet passengers' expectations? Looking forward, looking bright. Learn more and spread the word. Support our port, support our tourism.
Welcome back to the Business Buzz, the business topics that matter, an insightful and fresh take on a variety of issues that impact the local business environment. Cayman's Business Buzz.
Welcome back to the Business Buzz that is proudly sponsored by Cayman Medical Supplies and Cayman Insurance Center. Keeping the spotlight and hearing more about Cayman Fertility Center, which is a state-of-the-art multi-purpose, purpose-built building centered right here in Grand Cayman. It's a full-service IVF clinic built to facilitate patients across the Cayman Islands, United States, and Northern Caribbean. Cayman Fertility Center is a sister clinic to the world-renowned Barbados Fertility Center, a JCI-accredited center of excellence for IVF with over 16 years' experience in helping couples achieve their dream of a family. They diagnose and treat all aspects of fertility, from natural fertility testing to in vitro fertilization and egg freezing. I was going to ask you about harvesting, so that pretty much gave it away. I'm pleased to have in studio with me this morning Dr. Joseph Davis, who's medical director over there at Cayman Fertility Center. That's out in Heron Place. That's out in High Rock Landing. So the landmark is the health center.
Correct. Yep. Health City.
Health City. Yes. Yep. Out there in East End. Hours of operation.
So with any fertility center, we, depending on what sort of is going on at the moment, if we're in the midst of doing in vitro fertilization cycles, we really are sort of beholden to a woman's menstrual cycle. So we, during that time for those patients who are undergoing treatment, we're 7 days a week.
Okay.
Generally speaking, for consultations, for in-person visits outside of in vitro fertilization, it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. And when I see patients for a new patient consultation, I book a full hour per patient to really have an opportunity to talk with them. We do an ultrasound in office to assess their ovaries and look at their ovarian reserve, which is part of the testing for women. And they also spend time with my nurse, Dawn, to go through sort of what are next steps, tests, and so forth. So it's a true, intensive look at your fertility.
We were talking about egg freezing in the intro when I introduced you back and just giving a little bit about Cayman Fertility Center. This egg freezing, people can actually harvest their eggs and use them when they want. What does that mean?
And sure. So when we look at the reproductive cycle, when we look at from the beginning of when you start ovulating all the way up until the sort of end of your reproductive time, a lot of people are really focusing on getting pregnant right now. Well, as society sort of evolves and progresses, a lot of people are not ready to be pregnant at the ideal time, which is in your 20s when your fertility is at its peak. And over the last last 10 to 12 years, the concept of freezing eggs has really started to develop and the technology has advanced. Freezing eggs is a very challenging thing to do. The egg is the largest cell in the human body. And one cell, if you freeze it, has a likelihood of either surviving or not surviving. It can get damaged. So it took a long time for the studies to really show how to do it effectively. But now it is. It's readily available. It's commercially available. And it's an amazing technology for women who are not quite ready to be pregnant right now, but they also are aware that, look, time is going by. I haven't found the right partner yet. I haven't gotten to the right place in my career. Maybe now I should think about my future fertility. The wonderful thing about egg freezing is it's a woman's right to choose and her ability to take her own fertility in her own hands and really be proactive. But it also gives you that flexibility in the future.
Right.
What I often talk to people about with egg freezing is you're freezing eggs that your body was otherwise going to just discard over time. So we're not taking away your future fertility. We're actually preserving today's fertility for the future. And it's more of an insurance policy than an actual plan for getting pregnant. People do use their frozen eggs as their sole way to get pregnant in the future. But what a lot of women are doing is they say, well, I'm going to freeze my eggs now. When I'm ready to get pregnant, I'll try, and maybe try either with a partner or try with other means. And if it's unsuccessful, then I have these frozen eggs as my backup plan. And that's really the best way to approach it.
What about the male side?
So there is an actual increase in the last year of freezing sperm for men. It's somewhat debatable, honestly, because men produce sperm continuously throughout their, most of their life, and really sperm production starts to slow down in late 40s, early 50s. Women, on the other hand, have a set number of eggs for their whole life. So it seems like the onus is on the women, but it's a difference in physiology that when a man produces sperm, it's generally 20, 40, 60 million sperm. Well, that's a lot of sperm to be used for pregnancy.
Right.
With women, they release one egg every month. And eventually they're going to have fewer and fewer, whereas a man may be able to produce more sperm even into his late 40s. So the idea of freezing sperm, we can do it. We do it for people who are like sperm donors, but it's generally not sort of seen as necessary for people for their own future fertility, with the exception of patients that are experiencing medical conditions or maybe even a cancer diagnosis, and they're going to undergo some treatment that's going to impact their fertility. We then say, yes, absolutely, let's freeze sperm, let's freeze eggs before you go through any treatment that's going to potentially affect your fertility.
What is the liability like for the service that you offer, understanding that you're taking that responsibility, offering this service to freeze persons' babies?
Sure.
And how do you define that line, harvesting eggs to it becoming a human? Is there a fine line?
Well, that's a very big debate.
Because it's not fertile until you actually inject the semen in there.
Well, there's sort of different people have approached it from different sides. And, most people would agree sperm and eggs in and of themselves are similar to like donating blood or plasma or something. They're tissues that are, just in and of themselves, even though they have the capacity to be something more. Once they're fertilized and create embryos, a lot of people do feel that that's sort of the moment that things begin. There's another sort of approach to say, well, until that embryo is actually inserted into a woman's womb or uterus, then really doesn't have the ability to become anything further than
viable.
An embryo. So it depends on your sort of personal beliefs on it and views on it.
Very interesting. Now, what's the most common misconception about infertility and just the whole aspect of IVF?
Yeah. Well,
misconceptions.
I was going to say there's several of them. I think one of the big ones is, as we've sort of talked off air, is whose is it? Is it him or is it her? That kind of debate. And we know that it's almost equal. Which makes logical sense if you think it takes two to make a baby. It takes a sperm and an egg. So that's one of the biggest ones that I am seeing. Another one is that if you just relax and keep trying, it'll happen. There is some statistics to the odds of pregnancy in a certain time frame. And when we talk about that, usually we say, well, under the age of 35, if a man and a woman are trying to have a baby, then trying for about a year means about 85% of them should be pregnant. But if you're at the year mark and you're not pregnant and you're under 35, that's a time to get checked out because we can generally then identify a barrier or a problem.
Okay.
But that's not the only way to look at it. If you're under 35 and you get a period every 3 to 6 months, you don't need to wait a year to find out that the problem is
Something's wrong.
ovulating, right? So, or if it's a man that's had some sort of trauma or surgery that would imply infertility, get checked out right away. There's no need to wait the year to then fit some sort of criteria.
Now, does fertility treatments mean multiple babies at once?
So it depends. Not intentionally. I think
we don't want to be Octomom.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. No. Our purpose always as fertility specialists is to provide the best quality and health of the pregnancy. Our goal is healthy babies, and the healthiest outcomes are generally seen with singletons. Twins do happen. They're common and they're cute, but they do come with risks. Twins, and especially triplets or quadruplets, tend to deliver early. They almost always are delivered by C-section, which is a major surgery. High blood pressure of pregnancy, diabetes are all conditions that can be seen more commonly with twins and triplets than they are with singletons. That's not saying singletons are always healthy either, but we really strive for the healthiest outcomes. Where you start to see multiple pregnancies with fertility treatments, quite honestly, are less in the IVF realm and more in the pre-IVF, the Clomid or the fertility pills, because it's not as precise. The idea is if a woman releases one egg every month, well, if you take Clomid, you may release 2 eggs or 3 eggs, and that's all happening in your body naturally.
Right.
Maybe you get lucky and all 3 of those eggs fertilize. I say lucky in quotes.
Unlucky.
Right. Unlucky or lucky. But with IVF, with single embryo transfers, we can select a single embryo to put into the woman's womb at any given time, and the odds of twins are the same as nature,
Now, fertility treatments are also usually perceived as being very expensive. So what financial considerations should persons take into account when they first, start seeing a fertility specialist?
So, the cost is one of the big barriers, I would say, and that's across the world. When we start looking at fertility treatments, almost every patient that I see before they leave seeing me, the question is, how much does this cost? And I think that's important. You should know that. We actually post on our website, we have our prices for the different treatments. It's easier sort of looked at once you know kind of what route you're undergoing, what treatments you need. When it comes to things prior to IVF, like insemination or medications like Clomid, those are fairly inexpensive, in the less than $500 range, quite less even. When you start getting into advanced reproductive technologies, which is really in vitro fertilization, our prices here, we've tried to keep them as affordable as possible. And I say that relative to the United States. And I can say with authority, coming from the United States, the costs of in vitro fertilization, just as it is 2 to 3 times higher than it is here in Cayman.
Wow.
That's just the price of the treatments. If you then have to travel to another destination, you have the hotel, you have the airfare, you have the food, you have all of that. And the IVF process takes about 2 weeks. And so if you're looking at taking 2 weeks off work to travel to then undergo an expensive treatment, that's really why we said, when we're here, what we're going to really provide for them is the ease of getting to the clinic, the quality of care that you would get in the United States, but for really a much more manageable price. That being said, it's not generally covered by insurance, which is a challenge.
Okay. You're in tune to Radio Cayman's Business Buzz as we put the spotlight on Cayman Fertility Center. And I'm pleased to have in studio telling us more, Medical Director Dr. Joseph Davis. Now, looking at the whole process of infertility, and you lead up to that point where the person has undergone the IVF, what is the biggest risk in the whole thing? I mean, are you walking around like on eggshells all the time because you didn't do it naturally?
Sure, no. And it's a really important question, because when it comes to risks associated with fertility treatments, one of the big risks outside of IVF is, as we talked about, the multiple pregnancies, the twins and so forth. When we get into the IVF process, the first step of IVF generally is trying to grow multiple eggs. And the idea behind it is that we could take one egg at a time, fertilize it in the laboratory, and that's truly in vitro fertilization, but it's very inefficient. Not every egg fertilizes, not every fertilized egg makes it to the embryo stage, and not every embryo results in a pregnancy. So if we were to do one egg every month, it would be a long, drawn-out process and very expensive. So we generally combine it with what's called ovarian stimulation, which means taking hormones just like your body produces, but to take advantage of the body's ability to grow multiple eggs. We collect those eggs, and then we can fertilize multiple eggs so that what we end up with is a limited number of embryos that are of high quality. Well, during the stimulation process of growing your eggs, your ovaries are going to enlarge, and that's going to cause bloating, fullness. Some people feel a little sick to their stomach. That's all natural side effects of it. There are extreme versions of that where someone may be really, really bloated, and we look out for that. We do different things in the protocol to manage that, to avoid that. We're very big on avoiding risk as much as possible.
Do you foresee your center in the future probably having an on-staff person to deal with mental issues because of the stigma that could go along personally with the male and the female?
Absolutely. As we are currently with our partnership with Barbados Fertility Center, we do have a counselor there that can do Skype consults or do phone consults, but I would love to have an in-house counselor to be able to have that one-on-one, because there's nothing better than to sit down face-to-face with somebody and really connect.
Yes.
And I think that's important.
Healthy mind, healthy
Absolutely.
body, healthy everything. It's a 360. We're the Business Buzz, and it's proudly sponsored by Cayman Medical Supplies. Give them a call, 949-6211. And also by Cayman Insurance Center, celebrating 45 years in the Cayman Islands, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. Keep it locked to Radio Cayman Business Buzz for more after these few messages.
Oh gosh.
Don't let the stress of taking care of loved ones get you down.
Home care, now made easier with Cayman Medical Supplies. 100% Caymanian owned. Cayman Medical Supplies now stocks a wide range of home care supplies. Hospital beds, all types of wheelchairs, including beach access wheelchairs, lifts, commodes, shower chairs, walkers, Curad brand orthopedic supplies. Free blood glucose monitors with the purchase of 1 pack of test strips, blue underpads, and a whole lot more.
Need home care convenience? Drop by Cayman Medical Supplies at 93 Smith Road, Windward Center, or call 949-6211. Free delivery.
Don't take chances with your family's future or your valuable assets. Always be prepared and ensure your family is provided for. Cayman Insurance Center specializes in life, property, motor, health, and liability at the most competitive premiums and affordable rates on island. Call Michael Webster today at 925-5433 for life insurance, or Denise Brown at 814-7229 for property insurance. Call them today for all your insurance needs.
Sending money to Jamaica? Send a money transfer with Western Union's direct-to-bank money transfer service. Send a money transfer conveniently and directly to bank accounts in Jamaica. Just tell your friends and family in Jamaica to register at a Western Union agent location for direct-to-bank deposits of their transfers. Visit your Western Union location for more information and try our direct-to-bank account service for your next transfer. Western Union, moving money for better.
Western Union also makes money from currency exchange. When choosing a money transmitter, compare fees and exchange rates, which may vary based on a number of factors and are subject to change.
Welcome back to the Business Buzz, the business topics that matter, an insightful and fresh take on a variety of issues that impact the local business environment. Business Buzz.
Welcome back to the Business Buzz, chatting with Dr. Joe Davis, Medical Director at Cayman Fertility Center, located out there in High Rock Landing. Yes, Heron Place, unit number 11. That's 1283 Seaview Road in the East End. Now, understanding where the Cayman Islands is located in the Caribbean, hurricane season is upon us. We're talking about you freezing eggs and the services that you offer at your fertility clinic. What preparations or what is security mechanisms are in place in the event of a hurricane and you have all of these eggs frozen for people?
Absolutely.
We need to know.
Absolutely. And that's a very common question I get, actually. The important thing to remember is when we freeze eggs, they're basically in a state of suspended animation inside liquid nitrogen, which keeps a steady temperature, and it doesn't rely on power of any sort whatsoever. So once they're frozen and they're in our cryo storage tanks, you could lose power or not lose power. Fortunately, we don't lose power because we have an amazing generator.
Okay.
And our facility is built in a brand new building that's rated upgraded to my understanding, to Category 5 hurricanes. So hopefully we don't face that. Even one level above that, we're on the top floor. So even if there was massive flooding into the first floor, we're still good. So the tanks themselves are actually small and portable. So if in a worst case scenario, we could evacuate with them. And we saw this a lot when I was in New York City, is when Hurricane Sandy hit New York City, New York University, NYU, lost a lot of embryos because they were subterranean. They were under the floodplain. Whereas my practice, we were on the 10th floor of a high-rise, and we had generators on the roof, and we never lost we never had any concern whatsoever. And so it is something that we've thought a lot about. And Barbados Fertility Center, our sister practice, has been in there for 16 years. They've faced their share of bad weather as well, and it's never been a problem.
Okay. Now, some people refer to persons who have gone and sought and received fertility treatment, and they have this beautiful baby as designer babies, test tube babies. What do you say to those people that look at those kids as though they're just something man-made?
Well, I see your point, and I think that everyone's going to have their own opinion of other people, and I think for the couples who have been struggling to build that family that they've always dreamed of, that they have a human right to have, that's their baby 100%. It doesn't matter what means they went through. I treat it the same as if someone has a medical condition like diabetes and they're on insulin, they're still a human being that lives a healthy life, and they just need some assistance.
Now, why should persons choose Cayman Fertility Clinic?
I would say that the number one reason to choose Cayman Fertility Clinic is because it is one of the best in the world. We've got myself and my nurse Dawn are from some of the best institutions in the United States with the highest success rates. Katerina, our lab director from Barbados, has amazing proven track record for success, and we wanted to bring that here. We didn't want to just create a fertility center that filled a hole or filled a niche. We said, we're going to create the best fertility center. We want it to be a destination for people who are traveling from all over the world. And just as Barbados is, the only way to do that is to have success. And not just success on the pregnancy front, but to give patients the experience that they're listened to, that they're part of this. We're all on this journey together. And I pride myself on saying, I'm the only doctor here, which means I'm going to see every patient from beginning to end. And I'm available for any questions they have, because I'm here for you all the way through the end of your journey.
Succession planning.
Exactly. That's a good question. So you mean for me personally?
Yes, or? I'm the only one. I had to come back to that one.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's true.
Anything can happen.
Exactly.
What is in place and what can we look forward to or in store moving forward from Cayman Fertility Services?
I mean, in the long term, I would say that my goal would be to bring on another physician, or maybe even two eventually, that have the same belief and the same sort of desire for me as I do, to build this into a center of excellence that people would travel the world for. The challenge, of course, in that is finding extremely qualified, good people that care about patients. And, there are many of them out there, but showing them the beauties of Cayman, showing them of how wonderful this sort of practice can be, this life can be. And I can tell you from my brief time here in Cayman, the people have been so amazingly welcoming and wonderful. I don't see why anybody wouldn't move here.
Yeah. Now, understanding what you do in fertility services, what are the chances of DNA being manipulated? And does your service offer surrogacy or access to surrogates, finding surrogacy?
So the question of DNA modification is not really done clinically right now. There are these gene editing concepts out there. They're in research levels. There are people worldwide that are starting to do it clinically, but there's a big debate over the ethics of that. Okay. We don't really feel that that's a place that we want to be. I personally don't see the advantage from a medical standpoint at this stage, and the research on the potential medical advantages is still very new.
Okay.
With regard to surrogacy is a challenge worldwide. There are a lot of people on both sides of the camp with that. Even within the United States, there are certain states that prohibit surrogacy, more so about the birth moment of who's on the birth certificate, who's sort of recognized as the parents. So for most of the Caribbean, it's patients unfortunately do have to then travel abroad to undergo that if they need it. What we can do is create embryos for them with their eggs and sperm and then ship those embryos to another location if they need it.
Okay. What would you like to leave with our listening audience this morning, or what would you like to for our listening and viewing audience to, recap, if anything, or that you'd like to resonate with them?
I think the number one thing for everyone to know is that infertility is common. 1 in 8 couples experience infertility worldwide, and that's not an insignificant number. If you look at it relative to other medical conditions, it's extremely high on the list. And that means don't be afraid to seek help. We're here for all levels of care, even from just asking general questions about fertility all the way up through treatments. You don't have to wait until you've tried for 5 or 6 years and it's much more difficult. Reach out to us, see how we can help, and I'd love to be there for you as your doctor.
Okay. Dr. Joseph Davis, Medical Director of Cayman Fertility Center, thank you so much for allowing us to put the spotlight on your facility. And again, that's Cayman Fertility Center, located out there at Heron Place in High Rock, out in East End. You can visit, like them on Facebook.
Yes,
had their opening yesterday. And congratulations again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I want to thank our loyal listeners and our sponsors, Cayman Medical Supplies and Cayman Insurance Center, for their continued support. We want to thank our producer, Susan, and we want to thank DJ Paul McCall, who's behind the boards today. Kudos to you, and thank you so much. Stay tuned for more of Radio Cayman's programming, and be sure to join me again on Tuesday for another interesting segment on the Business Buzz. It has been my pleasure. Have a safe and fabulous Thursday, and it's also a long weekend. Be safe.
Business Buzz is proudly sponsored by insurance agents Michael Webster and Denise Brown from Cayman Insurance Center, specializing in life and property insurance. Don't take chances with your family's future.